Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the relatively uncommon ground-type Pokemon Sandshrew, its uncommon evolution Sandslash, and their Ice-Steel-type Alolan variants, all collectively known as the Mouse Pokémon. The members of the Sandshrew family share a physical resemblance with creatures such as the armadillo and pangolin, but they are actually more closely related to mice, hence their species title. Sandshrew are covered in a thick, yellow hide with joints along it that allow for free movement of it without restricting the overall mobility for the most part, and it serves as a decent defensive barrier, protecting their pale yellow bellies and mouth region. They have large, dark blue eyes that are perfect for seeing in extremely dark environments, which is good for them, since they can spend a good portion of their days underground at a young age. They further possess small, triangular ears, with 2 sharp claws on their toes and 3 small ones on their hands, primarily designed for digging through dirt and soft rock, and a somewhat long tail that is mainly used to help sweep dirt behind them so as not to leave a mess if they have to return the way they came when digging a tunnel underground. Their Alolan variant looks fairly similar in terms of the overall body shape, but their hide is much thicker and is made from a combination of metal formed through solid-state diffusion through their skin, as well as a thick layer of blue ice that helps to armor their bodies against the cold and attacks from predators. The color of their belly is otherwise unaffected by this. By comparison, the hides of Sandslash have split and fractured into a series of sharp, dark brown spines that are used for both offensive and defensive purposes. And while they otherwise retain a similar body color pattern as their pre-evolved form and still have 2 claws on their toes, their hands have slightly degenerated and left them with only 2 digits on each hand. But this is compensated for by their claws increasing massively in size, becoming quite curved and surprisingly sharp. They also retain their natural eye color, but they have grown a small horn on their forehead, and their ears have become slightly elongated. Their Alolan variant retains the same general body plan, but their skin has turned a light blue color and their belly region a pale white, and their spines are encased in both metal and a layer of hard ice, granting them additional defensive protection. Furthermore, their claws now have hooked ends, making them perfect for scooping out snow and climbing icebergs with ease. The members of the Sandshrew family, outside of the Alola region, generally live in grasslands and especially deserts, where the dirt is soft and the temperature is warm most of the year, their normal ground-type attributes developing from their life in the ground. These creatures use their claws to build tunnels and burrows in sand and soft dirt, where they can avoid the extreme heat of the sun. And while Sandslash are able to hunt effectively outside most of the day, as their spines act as a powerful heat shield when they are curled up, Sandshrew often have to spend most of their time inside of their burrows to avoid the heat, only appearing outside of them when they sense a prey item approaching, so they can quickly emerge from their burrow and swipe at it to get a quick meal. Regardless, both of these creatures are excellent tunnel builders, and Sandslash in particular are gifted at this, as their massive claws are built like shovels, scooping out large quantities of dirt and rock at a feverish pace. Unfortunately, this can cause their claws to snap off if they dig too fast and accidentally hit an object that is too hard for their claws to handle, but this is rarely a huge problem for them, as their claws will usually regrow in a day or so. Farmers even welcome this sometimes, as the claws and horns of these beasts can often be fashioned into plows for tilling fields when they fall off or are otherwise discarded. The hides of these beasts are impressively strong and act as a potent shock absorber for physical attacks, granting them a deceptively high base defense stat even at a young age. Their penchant for kicking up blinding dust storms in order to hide themselves, and strong association with the dirt and the ground as a whole, is also readily observed in their abilities, as they normally have access to Sand Veil as a base ability, and if their digging ability is particularly effective, it can help grant these creatures the Sand Rush ability as their hidden ability. As far as their stats go, however, these creatures are only truly gifted when it comes to their physical attributes, as the only base stat that is above average for a fully evolved ground-type Pokemon in the case of Sandslash is their base defense stat. Everything else is below average, and they lack the power needed to make exceptional use of the moves they naturally gain access to. Even so, they are still fairly hardy beasts that can make good use of the earth to attack, and can be fun to work with if you're willing to be patient with them. It is interesting to note, though, that due to unique environmental circumstances in the Alola region, the members of the Sandshrew family have a unique variant there that is observed nowhere else in the entire world. According to regional scientists, When Mount Hokulani erupted in the distant past, it drove the native Sandshrew and Sandslash of the region away from Haina Desert, where they originally dwelled, and upward towards the icy peak of Mount Lanakila. While they normally would not have survived in the freezing cold that surrounds the peak of this mountain, over time and with nowhere else to go, these creatures adapted to the frigid climate of the area and transformed into a completely new variant with different type assignments, moves, abilities, stats, and methods of evolution. First of all, in order to insulate themselves against the freezing cold, these creatures started to naturally form icy shells around their hides, granting them the attributes of the ice type. At the same time, they adopted the process of growing a thick layer of metal on the outermost edges of their skin in place of a tough hide they had before, in order to better protect themselves against predators like Weavile, in turn making them partial steel types as well. Secondly, in the case of Sandshrew, while some of their moves were retained, these beasts lost access to their Sand Attack, Poison Sting, Rollout, Magnitude, Sand Tomb, Dig, Sandstorm, and Earthquake moves, instead gaining access to the Bide, Powder Snow, Ice Ball, Metal Claw, Iron Defense, Iron Head, Hail, and Blizzard moves. Sandslash, on the other hand, lost the ability to learn almost any new moves at all after evolving, though they did gain access to the Icicle Spear attack immediately after evolving, and can additionally learn the Metal Burst and Icicle Crash attacks, all of them a consequence of their sharp and well-armored icy hides. Thirdly, their abilities changed to replace the effects of sand and dirt with that of snow and hail, granting them access to Snow Cloak as a base ability and Slush Rush as a hidden ability. Fourthly, their stats changed slightly, with Sandshrew gaining a minor decrease in their base special attack stat and a very minor increase in their base defense and special defense stats, and Sandslash gaining a moderate decrease in their base special attack stat and a slight increase in their base defense and special defense stats. In turn, this means that their base HP stat is above average for a fully evolved Steel-type Pokemon, and their base attack and defense stats are above average for a fully evolved Ice-type Pokemon, though everything else is still below average. Lastly, and for reasons that are still unknown, these creatures have lost the ability to naturally evolve in the extreme cold of the environment they now call home. The only thing that is capable of evolving them now is the radiation given off by an ice stone, which are extremely rare. As a whole, these new variants definitely do change what these beasts are capable of, and it can certainly make them a tough nut to crack without the right types of moves to counter them. In looking at Sandshrew, it can be readily observed that their hides, though seemingly quite dry, are actually extremely efficient at holding water in the bodies of these beasts, which can allow them to survive even in the harshest of desert conditions with little trouble. Unfortunately, this also makes their bodies easily overhydrated and thus explains their general weakness to the water type, with dew often forming on the outside of their hides in the early hours of the morning as they awaken from their nightly slumber. As a result, these creatures will generally make their burrows far from water and high above the local water table to avoid it as much as possible, in turn explaining why they prefer to live in lands where there's minimal rainfall. If they become too wet and the hide starts to wrinkle, Sandshrew will find a hot place, such as a rock near or within a volcano, and will simply lie flat on their bellies and allow the geothermal heat to dry them out. While these critters generally rely on the dirt and sand of their native environments as a defense and a barrier between their hide and moisture when not hunting bug-type Pokemon, which is where the aforementioned morning dew comes from, their primary form of direct defense is their tough hide, and because of the numerous plates and sections that divide it, it is flexible enough that Sandshrew can actually curl up into a ball, and often will do so as their primary means of protecting their soft underbellies from attack. While curled up, these creatures are able to move along the ground at fairly high speeds, and their shock-absorbent hides can allow them to survive a fall from a great height if they impact the ground, protecting them from attacks from all but the most determined of predators. However, this defense can be taken advantage of by more intelligent creatures, bouncing them around like a ball until they are eventually knocked unconscious by the blows. This can put these beasts in severe danger and should be avoided by trainers if they wish to keep their companions safe from severe internal harm. In the case of a lowland Sandshrew, because their metallic and icy hides are thick and heavy, making them weigh more than 3 times what a normal Sandshrew weighs, they cannot curl their bodies up at all, a trade-off for their overall increased defenses. Sadly, their bellies are still the most vulnerable part of their bodies, and are in turn the primary target for predators like Weavile. So these creatures will often cling to the surface of the ground and ice sheets with all their strength to prevent being flipped over. But their small front claws can sometimes make this exceptionally difficult. Even so, they don't have any other major predators to worry about, and their claws are a bit more useful for clinging to ice than they would be if they were a normal Sandshrew, so it's not all bad for them. Moreover, if these creatures do need to get out of a sticky situation, they can run a short distance to build up a bit of speed before sliding across icy surfaces on their bellies, while their attackers often lose their footing on the slick surface, giving them a chance to escape. Amusingly enough, there is actually an annual competition in the areas they occupy, where natives of the Alola region will compete to see who can slide their Alolan Sandshrew across an ice body the furthest, just like a curling stone. They might lack the mobility seen in their normal counterpart, but Alolan Sandshrew are still hardy creatures that can definitely prove to be fun to play with, even if getting them to evolve can be a bit of a pain. Much like Sandshrew, Sandslash also have the ability to curl up into a ball as a form of defense when they feel threatened, but it is equally a form of offense for them as well. As an evolution, their hides split into a series of sharp spines that they can use to pierce targets. These beasts will generally roll around in this state at high speeds towards their targets and attempt to either ram into them or leap into the air and come crashing down on top of their prey. This can be especially painful and gruesome if they fall from a great height beforehand, such as from the top of a tree, and getting there is no problem for them, as the claws of Sandslash allow them to easily climb trees to the point where they may choose to sleep there in the safety of their branches instead of on the ground where they might be more vulnerable to attack. If they don't have enough room to maneuver themselves to attack in their normal fashion, Sandslash will instead attempt quick turnarounds as they dash around their target in close quarters in an attempt to jab them suddenly, making them flinch and giving these beasts a chance to leap at their opponent and begin to wildly tear away at them with their massive sharp claws. While their spines are capable of taking a great deal of punishment, they can break, but this is of little consequence to these beasts, as once a year, they shed their old spines anyways as a new, fresh set pushes them up and out of their body and takes their place. This is probably the only time when they are actually vulnerable to attack on every part of their body, but the beasts will generally respond to this by burrowing underground and hiding until the new spines fully grow in and harden. As such, it can be difficult to penetrate their thick hide with direct attacks, leaving special offenses as their only immediate weakness in most battles. While their heavy hides, which make them weigh nearly twice as much as a normal Sandslash, also make it impossible for them to curl into a ball, unlike Alolan Sandshrew, Alolan Sandslash do not have to worry about predators all that much, as their incredibly sharp, icy spines can inflict massive and grievous wounds on anything that they pierce, and more importantly, can inflict frostbite almost instantly to the affected area. Even so, they are still wary of predators, and will often hide by burying themselves in snow and ice when they are not actively hunting, leaving only their sharp spines exposed at the surface. While they might not initially appear to be that fast, the claws of these beasts allow them to quickly tunnel through snow and ice with ease, almost to the point where they can practically swim through the material, and the special hooked ends of their claws allow them to carve through ice and cling to icebergs easily, leaving no obstacle that they cannot readily climb and overcome. The spray of snow and ice they leave in their wake can often be quite beautiful to look at, and tourists and natives alike will often spend time watching and observing their movements, so they can take pictures of the gorgeous sprays when they come into view. Though this can be difficult, as the high peaks where they tend to live are often restricted due to the extreme weather and cold present on a regular basis. Thankfully, despite their icy forms and powers, Alolan Sandslash are fairly benign creatures and can definitely make good partners for those looking to bring a bit of the cold reaches of their home with them, though contact can still be a problem due to the low temperature ice that covers their sharp hides. Although they might not be among the strongest of Pokemon of their type, the members of the Sandshrew family are hardy critters that can definitely make good use of their natural abilities to blind and stun their targets before going in close with their claws and other natural weapons. The variety of forms they come in can make it crucial to develop strategies that are tuned to best utilize their special abilities, but as long as you recognize what each variety is strong and weak against, you should have no trouble mastering the use of these rodent-like beasts in battle. If you're looking for a little fun in the sun and would like one of these critters to join you though, you shouldn't have too much trouble doing so. Just make sure that you try not to play too many games that involve using balls. For if you are not playing with their Alolan variant, and you get a little carried away and don't pay attention to what balls you are grabbing, you might accidentally end up picking them up instead, which can be a problem for them at a young age, and an even bigger problem for you and your physical safety if they're fully evolved. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
No.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.